Second verse, same as the first, continued. I smiled at Detective Lucero, relieved. Absolutely. I am appreciating you appreciating my candor. So, he asked, why don't you show me this thing and tell me what you know, or what your best guess is at any rate. Oh, geez, of course, sorry about that. Here, this is the lens, I stammered, face heating again. I lifted the lid awkwardly from that angle, but it came up easily with its little sigh, and I watched his face. No reaction. I lifted my eyebrow with a smile to myself. I lifted the lens out of the case carefully in both hands and held it up. We both looked at it as I explained the various parts and what I thought they were supposed to do. What are the specific dimensions? Do you know? He asked. I think the thry piece is a 1/2 inch and the crystal is 1 inch, a 1:2 ratio. I'm not sure about the dimensions of the two lenses inside. I can't see any way to open the tube easily, and I have no intention of taking it apart. That isn't happening, okay? I glanced at him sharply. He smiled and shook his head. That won't be necessary. We have labs here with X-ray machines. We can just scan it. I don't think that will hurt it, will it? I have no idea, but I can't imagine it would. I think both the interior lenses are a couple inches in diameter, though, because of the glass slides. And here I turned the lens slightly to partially pull out the slide tab. These are 2 inches in diameter, and the tube seems to be just the two widths, narrow here, where the crystal is, then wider, where the glass slides go into the end here. He nodded, leaning forward a little. Oh, I do remember one thing about the interior lenses from my dream, though, I said. The first one is a 3.5 times strength, and the last one is an 8 times strength. He leaned back, and I set the lens into the case, then leaned back myself, surreptitiously glancing at the clock again. 10:37. I looked at the detective, waiting for his response. He took a minute to jot down some notes on a pad in front of him, then said, well, that is certainly one hell of a story, Miss Campbell. Now, I'm not saying it's a story as in a lie, he added quickly when I started to bristle, just that it really is one hell of a story. You know, really. I settled back again, mollified. Yeah, I know, trust me. Like I said, it isn't something I chose in any way, shape, or form. We both chuckled. Glancing at the clock himself, the detective said, what I'd like to do is have our forensics take a good look at this lens, run some tests, get an idea of what it's made of, and an analysis. Can you leave it here for the rest of the week? That was about as far as I was going to let him go with that. Nope. No way. I am not leaving it anywhere. Where the lens goes, I go. I was shaking my head and picked up the lid, fully intending to bag up the lens and march right out of there. Wait, hold on. Okay. Not a problem. Relax, okay? No one is going to make you do anything here, okay? That's why I'm asking, right? I took a slow, deep breath. Okay, listen. I know you need to know as much as you can about this, and I know that I can provide a limited amount of information, and that tests are probably going to have to be done. But I want to know what kind of tests, what the reason is for them, what the procedure is, everything. I have to know and approve everything, and I have to be there while the tests are being done, okay? I was still leaning forward, my hands resting on the edge of the desk next to the case and lid, ready to grab them in a heartbeat. That sounds fair. Another glance at the clock, then he picked up the phone and hit a couple buttons. Janet, can you come here for a minute, please? Right away? Thanks. And he hung up. Janet is Janet Thorne. That's with an E. She's our forensic team lead. I want to see what she thinks. Just then, a head popped through the open doorway. A small, older woman, mostly gray hair and piercing gray eyes and a well-lined face. She came in and glanced at me, then the detective, then at the lens sitting in its box on the desk in front of me. What's up, boss? She asked. I guessed she was a smoker. The growl was unmistakable. This is Miss Campbell. She's brought in a device here. The background is a bit complicated and not important at the moment. What I need to know is what kind of non-intrusive tests can be run to determine what it's made of, composition and structure, and possible applications. Miss Thorne leaned forward and looked at the lens sitting in its case. Some kind of telescope? She asked me. May I ask? May I pick it up? She looked at me in question. "Here," I said, opting to do the removal. I held the lens up towards her, then tilted it to one side and the other as I quickly repeated what I knew about the parts. I did not say anything about possible applications. I glanced at the clock again. It was getting to be an every 30-second thing for me now. 10:48 a.m. "Well, a spectroscopy scan can tell us what kind of material the exterior is made of. From the looks of it," and she glanced at me pointedly, "it appears to be made of some kind of wood or woods in two sections, with a cap of some material at one end, some kind of part or piece joining the two sections, and some kind of round piece at the other end. Material also unknown. A DNA analysis would do, but too expensive and results take forever. We're waiting months for results as it is now, and I'm guessing time is of the essence here." Two heads nodded at her. "A simple X-ray, microdiffraction with spectroscopy and fluorescence will let us see inside, and it should give us a chemical analysis of an approximate age of the various parts." Thorne glanced at Detective Lucero, who just shrugged, and "I'm asking you," answer back at her. She glanced at the lens once more and said, "Those would be the initial tests I would recommend. Fast results, and we'd have a much better idea of what this thing is." "That sounds all right to me. What do you think, Miss Campbell?" I considered. "That sounds okay, but I have to be there for the tests. I am the person who holds the lens. That's what this is called. I carry it. I place it in the machines. I am the only person who touches the lens. Okay?" Miss Thorne frowned. "Well, a lot of our lab equipment is very sensitive, and much of it requires sterile procedures." I cut her off. "I am perfectly fine with being as sterile as you need me to be. I'll wash where and when and how and for how long you need me to. I am very good at following directions. I can place the lens onto an X-ray plate. I know I may have to leave the room, but I have to be in line of sight of the lens at all times, and I am the only person who removes or places the lens anywhere." Miss Thorne smiled. "Sure, no problem. We'll figure it out. Want to come with me and we'll get started? Time is of the essence and all that?" I thought frantically for a second. I'd told Tony I was nauseous when I called in sick this morning, which was the truth, and I half remembered something about saying I'd try to come in this afternoon if I could, but at this point, I just wanted to get the preliminaries out of the way. If I didn't have to drive here and go through all of this again, that would be much more preferable. I glanced at Detective Lucero, who had been watching the back and forth between me and Miss Thorne with a small smile on his face. He sat up and said, "We appreciate your time, Miss Campbell. If you need to get to work or something, we can do this another time, but no, that's okay. Now is fine." I put the lid on its case and slipped it into the bag, then grabbed my coat and purse. "I'm already lost in this place. Lead the way," I offered to Miss Thorne with a smile. She smiled back at me and headed out the door to the right, so I waved at the detective and hurried after her, afraid she'd turn some corner that I'd miss and I'd really be lost.